They laughed at me, mocked my clothes, and called me the maid. What would you do if your own daughter pretended not to know you? At her wedding, I never imagined this would happen to me, but what I did next left the entire room speechless. Stay with me because you won't believe how that ends. Before we continue, if you haven't subscribed yet, do so to stay up to date with the most shocking and real stories happening around you. You know, when your only daughter gets married, you expect to be front and center, right? I mean, isn't that the unspoken rule? The mother of the bride is supposed to be the second most important woman in the room, after the bride. Of course, I'd always imagined myself in a beautiful dress, maybe a tasteful shade of lavender or blue, standing proudly by my daughter's side. I pictured myself dabbing at my eyes with a lace handkerchief, watching her walk down the aisle, and maybe even sneaking a little smile at the groom, as if to say, you better take care of her, or you'll have me to answer to. That's how it's supposed to go, right? So you can imagine my surprise when the wedding invitation arrived in the mail. I remember the day so clearly. It was a Tuesday, and I just finished my morning coffee. The mailman, bless his heart, always gives me a little wave. As he drops off the letters, I saw the envelope, thick cream colored with gold lettering. My heart did a little flip. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I sat down at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and opened it. But as I read the invitation, my excitement started to fizzle. There it was, my name printed in small, neat letters. No mother of the bride, no special mention, just Miss Linda Harris, tucked in right between the florist and the caterer. I blinked, thinking maybe I'd missed something. I turned the card over, looking for a personal note, a little scribble in the margin, anything. But there was nothing, just the details of the wedding, the date, the time, the venue. It was also minimal. I sat there for a moment, invitation in hand, feeling a strange mix of confusion and disappointment. Did I miss a memo? Was there a new trend where mothers are supposed to blend in with the wallpaper? Maybe it was some new Pinterest idea, how to have a wedding without your mother stealing the spotlight. I chuckled to myself, trying to shake off the feeling. After all, weddings are stressful. Maybe she was just busy. Maybe it was a mistake. What mother hasn't forgive? And a little wedding stress. Still, I couldn't help but feel a little hurt. I thought back to all the years I'd spent, dreaming about this day, the late-night talks, the scraped knees, the school plays, the heartbreaks and triumphs. I'd been there for every moment, big and small. I'd always imagined that when the time came, my daughter would want me right there with her, front and center. But now, it seemed like I was just another name on a long list of vendors. I tried to brush it off. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe she was just trying to keep things simple. Maybe she didn't want to make anyone feel left out. I called my sister, hoping for a little reassurance. "Oh, Linda," she said, "don't take it personally. You know how these kids are these days. Everything's about being modern and minimal." I'm sure she didn't mean anything by it. I wanted to believe her, but the doubt lingered. As the days went by, I found myself replaying the moment over and over in my mind. I'd look at the invitation sitting on the mantel and feel a little pang in my chest. Was I being silly? Was I making a mountain out of a molehill? I tried to focus on the positive. My daughter was getting married. She was starting a new chapter in her life. That was what mattered, right? I started making plans. I went shopping for a dress, nothing too flashy, but something that made me feel good. I picked out a soft blue number with a little bit of sparkle. I even bought a new pair of shoes, sensible but elegant. I told myself that no matter what, I was going to be there for my daughter. I was going to smile, hold her hand and support her just like I always had. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. It was like there was a distance between us, a gap I couldn't quite bridge. I thought about calling her, asking if everything was okay, but I didn't want to add to her stress. I told myself to wait, to be patient, to trust that everything would work out. As the wedding day approached, I tried to focus on the little things. I baked her favorite cookies, just like I used to when she was a little girl. I wrapped her gift with extra care, tying the ribbon in a perfect bow. I even practiced my speech, just in case she wanted me to say a few words. I wanted everything to be perfect for her, even if I wasn't sure where I fit into the picture. Looking back, I realize now that the invitation was the first sign, the first hint that this wedding wasn't going to be what I'd always imagined, but at the time I was still holding on to hope that when the big day came, my daughter would look at me and see not just a name on a card, but her mother, the woman who had loved her, supported her, and stood by her side through it all. Little did I know the real shock was still to come, and nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the kind of day you hope for when you're planning an outdoor ceremony. I woke up early, nerves fluttering in my stomach like a flock of butterflies. I took extra care getting ready, smoothing my hair, dabbing on a little perfume, and slipping into my best blue dress. It wasn't designer, but it was my favorite, soft, comfortable, and just dressy enough to make me feel special. I even wore the pearl earrings my mother gave me on my own wedding day, hoping they'd bring a little luck. I arrived at the venue early, wanting to soak in the atmosphere and maybe sneak a quiet moment with my daughter before the whirlwind began. The place was buzzing with activity, florists arranging bouquets, caterers bustling in and out, and the wedding planner barking orders like a drill sergeant. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked inside, ready to step into my role as the proud mother of the bride. But the moment I entered, I felt the temperature in the room drop. My daughter's new-in-laws were clustered near the entrance, dressed to the nines in what I can only describe as country club chic. They gave me a once-over that could curdle milk, one of them. A woman with a helmet of perfectly coiffed hair leaned over to her husband and whispered, "Is that the help?" I heard it as clear as day, and for a split second, I wondered if I'd spilled something on my dress or had lipstick on my teeth. I tried to brush it off, telling myself they must be confused. After all, I was early, and maybe they didn't recognize me. But then my daughter appeared, gliding across the room in her robe, surrounded by bridesmaids. She looked beautiful. Radiant, really, and for a moment my heart swelled with pride, but then she looked right through me, as if I were invisible, and said, "Oh, the maid is here. Can you make sure the flowers are set up? Excuse me." The maid. I almost checked my hands for a feather duster. I laughed, thinking she was making a joke, maybe trying to lighten the mood. "Very funny, honey," I said, giving her a little wink. But she didn't smile. She just turned to her bridesmaids and started talking about her hair, leaving me standing there, feeling like I'd shown up to the wrong party. The laughter died in my throat when I noticed her new family snickering behind their hands, their eyes flicking up and down my outfit. One of the bridesmaids, a tall blonde with a voice like a squeaky door, pointed at my shoes and whispered something that made the others giggle. I felt my cheeks burn suddenly. I was back in high school, except this time the mean girls were wearing pearls and sipping champagne. I tried to keep my composure, telling myself not to make a scene. I busied myself with the flowers, arranging them just so. Even though it wasn't my job, every time I passed by the in-laws, I caught snippets of their conversation, little digs about my dress, my hair, my practical shoes. "Well, at least she's useful," one of them said, not even bothering to lower her voice. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and escape the humiliation. Have you ever wanted the floor to just open up and swallow you whole? Yeah, that was me. I kept reminding myself that this was my daughter's day, that I was here for her no matter what, but it was hard. So hard not to let their words get under my skin. I thought about all the times I'd comforted my daughter after a bad day. All the pep talks and hugs and late-night chats. I never imagined I'd be the one needing comfort. At her wedding, as the guests started to arrive, I tried to blend into the background, hoping no one would notice me. I watched as my daughter laughed and posed for photos with her new family, her face glowing with happiness. I wanted to be happy for her. Truly I did. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been pushed aside, relegated to the role of the help. I caught her eye once, hoping for a smile, a wink, some sign that she remembered who I was. But she just looked away, her expression unreadable. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I'll give them that. The flowers were perfect, the music was lovely, and my daughter looked like a princess. But as I sat in the back row, yes, the back row, because apparently the maid doesn't get a reserved seat, I felt like a stranger at my own child's wedding. I watched as her new family beamed with pride, taking center stage in every photo, every toast, every moment. After the ceremony during the reception, things only got worse. The in-laws made a show of introducing themselves to everyone, making sure to mention their country club memberships and vacation homes. When they introduced me, it was as Linda. She helped with the flowers. I smiled politely, biting my tongue so hard I thought I might draw blood. By the time dinner was served, I was exhausted emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I sat at my little table picking at my food, wondering how things had gone so wrong. Was this really my life now? Was I just the maid at my own daughter's wedding? But as I looked around the room at the laughter and the dancing and the joy, I made a decision I wasn't going to let them break me. I'd spent my whole life loving my daughter, supporting her and being there for her. No amount of snickering or side-eye was going to take that away from me. Little did they know, the maid still had a few surprises up her sleeve, and before the night was over, they'd all remember exactly who I was. I let her finish. I let them all have their fun. I smiled, nodded, and even fetched a few napkins when someone spilled their wine, just like any good maid would. But inside my heart was breaking, in ways I didn't know were possible. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? Was I really just the maid now? The woman who had given birth to her, raised her, loved her through every storm, now reduced to a punchline. At her own daughter's wedding, I watched as my daughter laughed with her new family. Her face lit up with joy, and I wondered if she even noticed the pain in my eyes. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. Maybe. She was too caught up in the whirlwind of her new life to see the mother she was leaving behind. The humiliation was relentless. Every time I tried to join a conversation, someone would turn their back or change the subject. When the photographer called for family photos, I was told to wait over there until they were done. I stood by the wall, clutching my purse, feeling like a ghost at my own child's celebration. The in-laws made a show of ignoring me, their voices dripping with condescension. Whenever they did acknowledge my presence, "Linda, could you bring us some more water? Linda, the cake plates need refilling." I did it all because what else could I do? I didn't want to ruin my daughter's day, no matter how much it hurt. But as the night wore on, something inside me began to shift. Maybe it was the years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights, spent worrying about fevers and broken hearts, the scraped knees I'd bandaged, the school projects I'd stayed up late to help finish. Maybe it was the realization that I deserved better than this. I was not just the maid, I was her mother. I was the woman who had given her everything I had, even when there was nothing left to give. I was the one who had taught her to be strong, to stand up for herself, to never let anyone make her feel small. And here I was letting a room full of strangers treat me like I was invisible. I thought about all the times I told my daughter to hold her head high, to never let anyone dim her light. I thought about the promises I'd made to myself to always be there for her, no matter what, and I realized that being there for her didn't mean letting myself be trampled on. It didn't mean accepting disrespect even if it was her special day. I took a deep breath, straightened my maid's dress, and decided that I was done being the punchline. Then, as if on cue, the DJ tapped me on the shoulder. "It's time for the mother of the bride speech," he said, holding out the microphone. I almost laughed at the irony. After everything, they still expected me to get up and say a few words. Maybe they thought I'd keep it short and sweet, thank everyone for coming, and then slink back to my corner. Maybe they thought I'd be too embarrassed to say anything at all, but they didn't know me as well as they thought. I took the microphone, my hands only trembling a little, and walked up to the stage. The room quieted, all eyes turning to me. I could see the in-laws smirking, my daughter looking a little nervous, the guests waiting for whatever was about to happen. I took another deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. I looked out at the sea of faces, some kind, some curious, some downright hostile, and I knew this was my chance to remind everyone, including my daughter, exactly who I was. I started softly, my voice steady but full of emotion. "Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate my daughter's wedding. It's a beautiful day, and I'm grateful to see so many people who care about her. I paused, letting my words sink in. I know some of you may not know me very well. You might have thought I was just the help today, and that's okay. I've always believed in helping wherever I'm needed. A few people chuckled, unsure if I was joking. I smiled, letting the humor break the tension. But let me tell you a little secret. I'm not just the maid. I'm the woman who held her hand when she was scared, who cheered her on at every recital, who stayed up all night when she was sick. I'm the one who taught her to be kind, to be strong, to never let anyone make her feel less than she is. I looked directly at my daughter, my eyes shining with tears. I've watched you grow into a beautiful, intelligent, and independent woman. I've loved you every single day of your life, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. And I will always love you no matter what. The room was silent now, the laughter and whispers gone. I could see the color draining from the in-laws' faces. My daughter's eyes wide with shock. I felt a surge of strength, a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. So if being the maid means loving you unconditionally, then I'll wear that title with pride. But I want you to remember, I am your mother, and nothing, not even today, can change that. I handed the microphone back to the DJ, my head held high for the first time that night. I felt seen, I felt heard, and I knew deep down that I had reclaimed my place, not just at the wedding but in my own life. I stood there, microphone in hand, looking out at a sea of faces, some smug, some bored, some just waiting for the cake. The room was filled with the clinking of glasses and the low hum of conversation, but as I cleared my throat, a hush fell over the crowd. It was as if everyone sensed something was about to happen, something that didn't fit neatly into the script of a perfect wedding day. I could see my daughter's new in-laws, perched at their table like royalty, their eyes narrowed in suspicion. My daughter herself sat frozen, her smile faltering, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every slight, every whispered insult, every moment I'd been made to feel invisible. And then with a calm I didn't know I possessed, I began to speak. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice steady. "Hand clear. I'm honored to be here, even if I'm just the maid today. But let me tell you a little secret." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. You could hear a pin drop. The DJ, who had been fiddling with his playlist, stopped mid-song. The waitstaff froze in place, trays balanced precariously. Even the children, who had been running circles around the dance floor, seemed to sense that something important was happening. I may not have the fanciest dress or the shiniest shoes, I continued, glancing down at my sensible blue heels, but I have something none of you have, a lifetime of memories with the bride. I was there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every triumph. I taught her to walk, to read, to stand up for herself, and today I'm standing up for myself too. The silence in the room was deafening. I could see the color draining from my daughter's face, her eyes wide with shock. Her new family looked like they'd seen a ghost, their smug expressions replaced by something that looked suspiciously like guilt. I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me, as if I'd finally set down a burden I'd been carrying for far too long. "I know I don't fit in with the country club crowd," I said, allowing myself a small wry smile. "I don't have a closet full of designer dresses or a summer home in the Hamptons, but I have love, I have resilience, and I have the kind of strength that comes from years of putting someone else's happiness before my own." I looked directly at my daughter, willing her to see me, not as the maid, not as the help, but as her mother. "Sweetheart, I have loved you every day of your life. I have cheered for you, cried with you, and picked you up when you fell. I have watched you grow into a woman I am so proud of, even if today you forgot who I am. And if being the maid means loving you unconditionally, then I'll wear that title with pride, but from now on I'll only answer to Mom." A ripple went through the crowd. Some people looked away embarrassed, others stared at me with newfound respect. saw a few women dabbing at their eyes, and even the DJ looked a little misty. My daughter's new family sat in stunned silence, their earlier bravado gone. For the first time all evening, I felt truly seen. I handed the microphone back to the DJ, my hands steady, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I didn't wait for applause or approval. I didn't need it. I walked off the stage with my head held high, my blue dress swishing around my ankles, and made my way toward the exit. As I passed my daughter's table, I paused for just a moment. She looked up at me, her eyes brimming with tears, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something, but I simply smiled, squeezed her hand, and kept walking. Outside, the night air was cool and refreshing. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the scent of blooming roses and freshly cut grass. For the first time all day, I felt free from the expectations, the judgments, the need to please everyone but myself. I realized that I had spent so much of my life trying to be everything for everyone, mother, friend, confidant, even the maid, that I had forgotten to stand up for myself. But tonight I had reclaimed my voice. I had reminded everyone, including myself, that I was more than just a supporting character in someone else's story. As I walked to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see a few guests hurrying to catch up, their faces full of apology and admiration. One woman, a friend of the groom's mother, hugged me tightly and whispered, "You were magnificent. I wish I had your courage." Another guest pressed a tissue into my hand and said, "Thank you for saying what so many of us feel, but are too afraid to admit." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Maybe I hadn't been the star of the show, but I had stolen the spotlight in my own way. I drove home that night with a sense of peace, knowing that I had finally stood up for myself, that I had shown my daughter and everyone else what true strength looks like. And as I slipped off my blue dress and climbed into bed, I realized that sometimes the most important moments in life aren't the ones we plan, but the ones where we find the courage to speak our truth. I drifted off to sleep with a smile on my face, knowing that I would always be mom, and that was more than enough. Thank you for watching this video. Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly value every story and every voice. Don't forget to subscribe to Tears and Strength and share this video with your friends.